Hey YouTube, Untamed here. So today I'm going to give you guys my no kidding first impressions of ownership of this 2023 Toyota Tundra TRD Pro. You guys know I've driven this before, I've had it as a press vehicle before, so I've had already kind of my loose first impressions on it previously, but now for the first time I have actually purchased the vehicle and I want to give you guys my honest feedback on it. Now just because I purchased it doesn't mean I'm going to sugarcoat everything and make it sound like the best truck in the world, because there's absolutely things to dislike about it. But I gotta admit, just after owning it for the last several days here, there's things that I never noticed about it before that I truly appreciate about it compared to the previous generation that I had. Some small things I'm going to point out here that I think if you have owned a previous generation Tundra or previous generation Tundra TRD Pro, you're going to know what I'm talking about. Hopefully you'll know what I'm talking about, and I think you'll appreciate this too. So starting with the color, you guys know that Midnight Black Metallic would have never been my first draft pick when it comes to a color choice, but I was more concerned about getting one that was nearby-ish. It was 7 hours away and at the right price tag, right? So that was my biggest concern, was the price tag and getting maximum trade value for my Voodoo Blue Tundra TRD Pro. And that's what I did. And that's what I'm most happy about with this particular purchase, because I know that financially speaking, it was a wiser move to get out of that V8 at this time. Did I lose money on it? Absolutely. I won't sugarcoat that either, and we'll go through the numbers in a following video. But really, I just want to... Sorry, you probably can't hear it as much as I do. Really, I just want to walk through what I really love about it right out of the gate of ownership here, and then the few things that, of course, I still don't like about it. And well, you can't really tell, but the engine just shut off too on the hybrid here. So that takes some getting used to in and of itself. So let's start with the front. The fact that it is black, I think, is a silver lining to it all. It's the fact that the front giant Fu Manchu grille really meshes and blends in nicely with the color. So it kind of gets lost in the black, and I think that's a good thing, because otherwise it's a huge front grille and there's no break in it. So it's like a Fu Manchu totally up front. So that is the one blessing of it being Midnight Black Metallic, in my opinion. I think it really does allow for a sleek front end. When it comes to the headlights, I've always liked these, so I've never disliked them. Are they better than the previous gen? Yes and no. I mean, obviously they're a little bit more advanced and they look pretty high tech from the side here with those metal plates on the side. So big fan of what the headlights look like, but I do love that previous generation. I mean, the previous generation totally looked like a Bulldog, and I love that about it, especially with the fake hood scoops up top. Was a big fan of that. Personally, I do like the digital camo here. I know some people are quick to beat up on that, but I think that looks pretty sleek. You get your marker lights, DOT requirement given the width of the vehicle. sounds like something's cooking up in there. Big fan of these too. I mean, they're not functional, but it does look sleek. Again, I mean, the fake hood scoops on the previous generation weren't functional either, and I love them still too. So that's our alternative that we get. Instead of the giant fake hood scoop right here, we get these guys right up here. So I like that. Big fan of it. I was pleasantly surprised. You guys don't think I'm a goober, but I was pleasantly surprised by the fact that it did have the paint protection film. You can see the line there. So I didn't actually realize that it had that on it, nor did I realize it had, so it has it in here too, but I didn't realize it had the trim piece protection as well. So that was a nice surprise, and this is where you're really going to think I'm a goober. So I knew what sticker was, and that was my biggest concern, but I didn't know it had the tonneau cover here, so this was a pleasant surprise as well. So when I talk about small things that I did not have on the previous gen that I do have in this one, would include the blind spot monitors, right? So we did not get this on the previous gen, and I tell you what, I mean, I really it's an additional nanny. I get it, it's more tech to potentially fail, but in today's day and age you really do expect it on a new vehicle, and it is a nicety to have. So I appreciate having it, and I know Mrs. Untamed, when she drives this, she'll appreciate having that too. The matte black, I think this looks sleek on the back of the side view mirrors here. I'm not a big fan of the giant tow mirrors that that are being spec'd on them as well. So a lot of the Sequoias are having those giant toe mirrors. Not a fan of that. You know, so I'm kind of diving into the cosmetics of it, but let me talk more about just overall feel of the vehicle. It really is extremely snappy. I'm talking, I think, better performing, more acceleration than the Ford Raptor, in my honest opinion. I think the Raptor, although extremely fast and very capable, I do think that this accelerates better than the Raptor. And it makes sense too when I think we talk numbers. I forget what the Raptor's torque was off the top of my head. I remember 450 horsepower. I think it might have been like right around 500, 510 torque. Don't quote me, but I believe that's where we're at. But this, 437 horsepower with 583 foot-pounds of torque, and you feel it. You absolutely feel it no matter what gear you're in, no matter how fast you're going, whether you're on a freeway, from a stop. It really does throw you in the back of your seat. So, a huge fan of that aspect of it. I'd be curious to know what I didn't look, obviously it's one Google search away, but I'd be curious to know what the clearance is up front. It feels like it has a lower front end. Perhaps it's just because it's a little bit of a longer front end compared to the previous generation, but it just feels like your approach angle might not be as good as it was with that previous generation, seemingly anyway. Granted, we do have the 35s on it now, so that brought it up a little bit, giving it a little bit more clearance up front too. As you can tell, we do have the fog lights on. Kind of a unique integration of those fog lights there with the rectangular design. I think it's pretty cool. Of course, with more digital camo up front for the Tundra plate up there near your radar, up here for adaptive cruise control and all the other Toyota Safety Sense features. And your TRD light bar there. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. Got to do a night video to show that to you. I do love these marker lights here. Again, part of that requirement, DOT requirement, given the width of the vehicle. I'll tell you what, the 35-inch BF Goodrich KO2s really brought this truck together as it did with that previous generation when I put the Nitto Ridge grapplers on. So a much needed modification to the Tundra here. So this is one thing that I wonder if I'm alone on. You tell me, guys. I might be, very well might be. So oftentimes, like when I look in my rear view mirrors or side view mirrors, I'd always look down the edge. You know, when you're looking in the mirror, you see down the side of your vehicle here. And on the previous generation TRD Pro in particular, you have TRD Pro stamped right here, right? And it drove me nuts. Please, I hope I'm not alone on this. It drove me nuts. In the stamp, there'd be creases, slight subtle creases up and down from the lettering, right? And like, that just drove me nuts a little bit. It just wasn't a polished look. You know, they stamped into it and had a bunch of creases up and down. Nothing terrible, but when the light hit it, there you go. When you hit it at a certain angle, you could totally see the creases up and down the side of the bed a little bit, up to the top of the bed from the lettering in particular, and it just drove me nuts. So tell me if that ever became an observation of yours with your V8 Tundras. I am a big fan of these taillights. I think they're pretty sleek and a pretty unique design overall. I think they did a great job with that. You got more of that digital camo out back, of course. Now we don't get the dual exhaust, which we got with the previous gen, of course. We just get the single exit, but dual pipes out the back of the single side. So it doesn't sound terrible, but it's nothing to write home to mom about by any means, especially if you're coming from that V8. If you're coming from like a Toyota Tacoma, you'd be all about this life. You got the little swanky button here to release the tailgate. Kind of gimmicky, but whatever. I mean, it's cool. It's kind of strange that they didn't put it on both sides, because they look like they could have easily done that, right? But have the composite bed. For those of you who don't know how this works, I'll give you a real quick demo. So you just pull down on the lever here, it unlatches it, you pop it up and you pull down on that lever one more time. You just kind of keep folding it upward. We're good. And the composite bed. Very lightweight tailgate, which is pretty cool. More of those marker lights out back. I'm trying not to show my reflection in the paint because you can totally tell I'm from the Pacific Northwest when I have a hoodie on and shorts in this kind of weather. All right, another glimpse of these wheels, which I think look incredible. Big fan of these. I think it would look awesome with a bronze set of these on this black, midnight black metallic. I think that would be a really cool look. I didn't put that down all the way. All right, take two. When you're looking down the rearview mirror, you really see just how indented this is right here, which I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I love it, but again, you can tell they made a very conscious effort to make this very sculpted. A lot of you guys, not a lot of you guys, a couple of you guys had mentioned you were surprised that I didn't miss the larger cargo or interior space of my previous generation compared to this one. We all know that the previous gen had a bigger back seat, which if you're about that dad life like I am, you really appreciate that. However, although it's smaller, you know, still plenty big, you know, at the end of the day. So yes, it's smaller, but still plenty of space if you're going to put 3 car seats back here. So no, it wasn't one of my biggest misses, if that makes sense. I am a big fan of this digital camo. I think that looks awesome. I'm eager to kind of put it side by side with my Toyota Sequoia, my 2023 Sequoia coming in, where we'll have the red interior with the camo as well. I'm surprised that they didn't make it a black roof liner. I think that would have been an easy thing to accomplish for the TRD Pro here. I am a fan of the panel roof, and so are the kiddos. So that is a success. I love the fact that it has a grab handle both back here as well as 2 up front. So one right here. So you guys know they did away with this on that previous V8. So I don't know. I've definitely grown to appreciate having it, especially when I don't have the running boards at the moment. I think that's a big deal. Now, I kind of get FJ Cruiser vibes a little bit from the interior here, and that's a good thing. But then again, when you start talking about the price tag over $70,000, that's where you start to kind of wonder if it is the right move for Toyota to have made this so plasticky on the inside. Even this, the handles, right? Just hard plastic. But again, I kind of get those FJ Cruiser vibes from it. I love the red stitching up here. This is nice. That feels premium. Hard plastic up here. Huge fan of that Toyota script. Already talked about that. But overall, you know, it does feel premium, but is it premium enough to warrant that over $70,000 price tag? Which is crazy given the fact that that previous generation cost what, $54,000 for the previous generation TRD Pro. This here, totally could do without. That feels like something that you'd get from like AutoZone for your Honda. So it's just, that feels cheap, totally. But when it comes to the actual steering wheel, I prefer leather, of course. Feels extremely premium with, most importantly, that right there, ladies and gentlemen, that made it worth it. That little button, that heated steering wheel, made it all worth it. The steering wheel itself is, here, let me give you more space. The steering wheel itself, I think, is a little bit too busy. A lot of buttons, a lot of options on it. I think it would have been nice to simplify that a little bit better, kind of stick to Toyota roots a bit. I wish it would have kept the cruise control down here, because that's just almost muscle memory. I still do it. Of course I do. It's only been a few days, but I still try to adjust the cruise control down there. The full digital screen here is great. You know, there's no complaints about that. Again, it's just more tech to potentially fail, so I understand if some people don't love that. I think I prefer analog overall. And not to mention, I mean, having owned a Gen 3 Ford Raptor 37 Performance package, I have really I think I've been spoiled a little bit because the interior of that Raptor is nicer than this. It feels more premium. It has those Recaro seats in it, Alcantara everywhere, some carbon fiber, real carbon fiber bits and trim pieces, and even their display here, the gauge display, is fully digital as well, but I think it's a better resolution. It's just a better setup overall. Now this 14-inch display infotainment here in the center section here, I think is equally good, or potentially even better than Ford's. I think, what is it, Ford Sync 4, Ford Sync 5, I forget what it is now. But I'll tell you what, I mean, even though this is right on par, price tag wise, with that Ford Raptor, the fact that it has that badge right there, and more importantly, that over there, is what makes it feel like a better decision to me. So I love having the Toyota badges on it. It doesn't feel like a douchey truck at all, which I love that about it. You know, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, the fact that it really is, what, within 10 grand, within $10,000 of a Ford Raptor price tag wise. And it's not totally screaming in your face, and I like that about it. Whereas a Raptor, you get the giant fender flares, it looks incredible, but it is screaming in your face totally. So I appreciate the simplistic cues of this, while at the same time still going the extra mile to try to make it a design marvel to its own extent. So all this to say, lots to love about it, still plenty to dislike. Again, I'm not trying to sugarcoat it now that I own it, but I tell you what, driving it really is a different experience altogether, a totally different experience. And if you haven't driven one, I encourage you to do so. You're going to miss the turn radius for sure. You're going to miss the V8 sound for sure, assuming you're coming from a previous generation Tundra. But when you step on that throttle, I think you'll be sold on it, because it truly is a phenomenal performer. Not to mention the towing payload, everything is so much better with this new generation here. Still get all the good tidbits of days of old, like the TRD skid plate, of course, sway bar, the TRD Fox tune suspension. It really is a great feeling vehicle. I gotta admit, maybe it is the KO2s, but it does feel a bit firmer than my previous generation. And you guys let me know if you've experienced that as well. And I think it might be the KO2s to some degree, but it feels a bit more firm. Which is why I see a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I've gotten some feedback from folks who put on the Westcott Designs lift on it, and it really just, it felt extra firm, is what they're saying. So I don't know, maybe some kinks to work out with that. I'm not sure. So I'm not going to be putting a lift on this. I think I'm happy with it as is. But I will be tinting the windows here in about a week or so, a week and a half. Kind of get rid of that fishbowl look. And I've already reached out to my friends at Go Rhino. I'm going to try to put on a different set of running boards this time around. Probably some electronic boards that actually kick out. They have a really nice set that I'm going to be excited to check out and share it with you guys. So there you have it. Sorry, I kind of blabbed on a ton in this video. Don't regret it whatsoever, especially from a financial standpoint. There's things I miss, but there's things that I prefer on this new generation here. So I'll wrap up the video there. Let me know what your thoughts are. Appreciate you watching as always. Till next time.